This morning I want to share with you about the night I went to war, and I'm going to share this with you in several parts. My son came home, this is many, many years ago in the early onset of addiction, and he was working away, and I hadn't seen him in a few months, and when he came home, I got the breath knocked out of me when I saw him. He was so thin. I could see every rib bone. I could see every chest bone. And he would say to me, "Mom, I am just buff. I'm just, in shape." But he wasn't. He looked like he was dying. And when he came home, what I didn't know that evening, that before he came home, he actually used heroin. So as the night was progressing, he was talking about how that he was itching, and I said, "Well, go take a hot shower." This whole thing, my process, I'm never thinking that he's taken anything. Well, as the night progressed, his breathing started getting more shallow. He was getting he was just getting drowsy and very lethargic. And so I told my husband, I said, "I'm going into that room and I'm shutting the door." I said, "Don't come in because I'm going to go to war." And that night I walked in that door. I had him in that room with me, and I told God, "Don't let anything in or out. And I'm asking you, God, to place a chariot of fire around my home, to encamp about it. Close the windows, close the door, Lord. Let this be a battle. I want to go to battle. I am not letting the enemy take my son." So that night I took him, and I just felt really to stand him up. And I stood, he's a lot taller than me, he's about 6 foot tall. And I put my arms around him and I made him stand there, even though he was hardly able to stand. And I started praying. And I just felt this need to, I would put my hands around his back, and I just pretended, thinking I was pulling just the demonic oppression, the addiction that had a hold of him. I was praying and I was pulling with everything in my hands, thinking, I just praying over him. After I got done praying, I laid him on the bed, and the strangest thing happened. Only on his face, this small beads of sweat came over. I then proceeded to cry tears of prayer and faith over his body, from his head to his toes. I prayed against drugs. I prayed against the addiction of drugs, what was taking his life. I prayed against that. And then that next morning is when something was said from him that made me know that my prayers and the way that I did pray, that it mattered and that it worked. I hope you'll listen to the next part of this story.